Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Welcome, my friend Eunice. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, everyone. I welcome you to this meeting on this session now that we are starting on. We want to look at emotions. I know very well that in our African context, we hardly talk about emotions. And yet, even now, there are a lot of emotions that are going on. There's somebody who has raised their hand. I'm not sure whether, Paul Peter, you want to address it now.
Eunice, I believe that is by accident. Eunice, that is your namesake, Eunice. So, Eunice, did you want to say something? No. Okay. Let's
Okay.
move on. Let's.
So I want to share with you a few things about loss and grief in relation to emotion and emotion in relation to the way we make judgment. And we all have ourselves. So I want you to just look at your hands and your nails. I don't know when was the last time you admired them. Your nails, particularly your nails. I don't know when was the last time you admire them. And I want you to just be aware what it triggers in you. Whether when you are a student or a child or something, and just be aware of the emotions. So as we look at emotions, we want to look at emotions in terms of how do we then sort ourselves with these emotions? How do we sort ourselves when emotions come? Because everywhere we are charging emotions. Everywhere, even in this space, whether you're in the bus, whether you are in the house, in the church, anywhere, you're always with your emotions. So when we are aware of our emotions, then we are better able to make better decisions. And what happens then when we have crisis of loss and grief? Because that then is a crisis at that point. And we know what death does. It's a finality. No more contact. No more talking. So we naturally hold our breath. It's a shock. And we summon everything. And the brain gets that information and sends it to every organ of your body. If there was food digestion that was going on, it will be suspended because the brain knows where the energy and the blood flow needs to be sent to immediately. Then the other thing that happens is that adrenaline is spurred up. And what adrenaline does in our system is that it accelerates every movement in our system. I'm sure you've never seen somebody who is angry and walking slowly and say, I'm really so angry. They walk very fast. The pupils are dilated. The muscles, the respiration, you're having palpitation. The body is sweating, and everything is accelerated. It's almost like when you hear an ambulance running on our streets in Kenya. One of the things that goes in your mind is you feel like they need to be given way. You actually would be talking with yourself. If there's a vehicle that wants to overtake them, you feel like, can't they let the ambulance pass? You know those things that happens in our Kenyan context. So I want us to look at all these things are happening to your system, and all these emotions are charged on your internal organs. The intensity has never been known, and there's no research that has been done. And for that, I would ask that you give yourself permission every day to reset yourself emotionally. Because if your internal organs were to be opened, I worked in theater many times, and unfortunately, we would never be told what happens to our internal organs or just being shown the picture. So I want you to have the mental image that the moment your system is taken over by that acceleration of anger, of rage, of this crisis that happens, then everything in your system changes. And at that point, the impact is on all internal organs. If we want to start even in the neck, it's usually something that almost choking you. Sometimes we make joke of it that you feel kiwaru somewhere here. You feel like a potato is choking you when you're angry. Any of us that have felt that? You feel like you can't breathe. You feel like you're struggling, that potato that chokes here. But what happens? Do you ever get time to soothe that throat, to soothe that? Because that is where we have the thyroid glands. We did biology. I'm sure in our Kenyan context, we did biology up to Form 2. And we can still access. There's a reason why we did biology. We can still access to just check what organs are here that were being blocked by that negative energy that came, and how do I soothe it? Or how do I even massage? And then if we look here on the side, there's this muscle that regulates our nervous system. Maybe you can put your hand, for those who are not driving, you'll be able to see. Mine is visible because I regulate it mostly. There's a muscle here. Anyone who can see my picture, I mean where I'm touching, and just identify yours. This is a muscle that we use to regulate our central nervous system. It is very key. OPP is somewhere here. Can you see mine?
Yes, yes. I'm looking for mine.
It is important. Just look for yours. Mine is prominent because I massage it, I reset myself, and I take care of it. And that just tells you that we have this muscle that is attached to the central nervous system. And the central nervous system is, I can equate it to the thermostat of the fridge. If you don't regulate it very well, it will disappoint you because you may want to remove food that you just wanted to warm without ice. But because it was too cold, everything froze. If it was too warm, the food will go bad. So you can imagine how the importance of the central nervous system being regulated as we deal with emotions and life challenges, including loss and grief. Because in our country, and I want us to get back that in this country, Kenya, and I want to share this with due respect, even for the people who are outside the country. Every 5 years, we've gone through political trauma. So you can imagine the things in your system that are triggered when there is loss and grief. We've already kept that information in our fiber. Our cells are aware of that because they hear, they have experienced Kenya, they have experienced the news because the cells are alive. So the moment you hold your breath, like when COVID came, we were doing, oh my God, so-and-so has COVID. You are holding your respiratory organ, the whole of it. So you have reduced oxygen entry, yet every cell in your body needs oxygen. And so it is important for us to reset ourselves daily, intentionally, and consistently. So when loss and grief comes, one thing, it leaves a vacuum. The other thing, we start asking ourselves why. Then we start dissecting our relationships. I wish I loved the person more. I wish that day that he wanted this thing, I could have slowed down and spent time with them. I didn't even hug him. I didn't show affection. I thought maybe after I finished this, we could have time to go for a relationship. I mean, to build our relationship and go for holidays and all that so that we can mend our relationship and make it better and spend more time and all that. And yet time has gone. So as we look at all these things, we need to ask ourselves, how do we then gain the awareness of our emotions? How do we process them? And how do we regulate our emotions during loss and grief? So the other thing I want us to be aware is, as I told you, that you look at your nails and just check what emotions does it elicit or trigger in you. Because emotions are like air that is out there. You get into a room, you get in with your emotions. You have money in your pocket, you will behave differently because of emotions. You'll go to the supermarket and mostly you may not, if you have enough money, you'll not even care to check the prices. You'll be picking what you need and then you go. But if you don't have enough money, you might be bending down to check the prices. You might also be looking at comparing the prices so that you get the best deal. So emotions are so powerful. And we miss out in our African context when we don't address them, when we don't share that time with it, that moment to sort them out, because then it directs our thoughts and it directs our behaviors. It also influences our decisions. I don't know how many of us here have been able to express their emotions in public. If you wanted to cry, that you can just cry. I know in our African context, again, I share that most men are not allowed to cry in public. You'll be told, sasa ukilia, especially the ones who are married. If you are crying, your child is crying, your wife is crying, who will take care of them? Connect you. They actually say, yes, I've seen somebody say, yes, too, you cried. And that was for me, I was so happy that he was able to show his human self and show his vulnerability. But how many of us are able to do that? You'll be told, man up, you cannot cry, let's sort this thing. You'll cry later, but if you don't create time to cry, then your body and your cells have that memory that is clogging it. And you can imagine the pile of the clog. So if the day you will need to do emotional cleaning, I cry a lot. And I say I'm having emotional. Yes, I cry a lot. I'm having emotional bath. And so yes, I cry and I release it. I scream. I can park off the road and scream. And then get back and just get Eunice back. And that helps me. But when there is loss and grief also, there are a lot of things because we are involved in the preparation, we're involved in the arrangements of the burial, and people need your attention. So usually you don't have even enough time to be close with yourself and call yourself to a meeting to reflect and check with yourself and give yourself permission to scream if you want to scream, or give yourself permission to evaluate your life and say the things that you would have liked to do differently, or the things you will do differently now that you know. And also, loss and grief remind us of our mortality, that yes, one day is coming, that this Eunice will give in to the last breath. And that's scary most of the time. That's scary. So we end up going through a lot of things, a lot of a channel of emotions in between that. And if we don't check, we may not even have time to mourn the parted one, the one who has died. Because after the burial, people expect you to move forward. And we've had people say, get off it, move on. But emotions can hold you back, because remember, it affects your thought, it affects your behavior, it affects your decisions. So it can hold you back and you can get stuck in the emotions. So it is important that we address it, that we reset, we seek time with ourselves to take care of ourselves. And as we grieve, I want us to be aware that even if you are a family of 4, each one of us have experienced the person who has died differently. And they will grieve differently. Even if they're your children, your spouses, your wife will grieve differently from the husband if they have lost their child. The siblings will grieve differently. And if they're young children, they will also grieve differently. And a lot of time we don't allow the young children to grieve. What we do is try to please them. We buy nice things and give them. If we see them sad, we say, don't come. And we want to distract them when they are processing the loss. And so it is important as adults to allow children in our lives to grieve. And the better way of helping them sometimes is to give them space, give them materials for drawing so that they can draw. And please don't analyze their drawings. Even if you are the parent and they have drawn you with no hand and they have written their daddy or mommy, please don't ask them, but I have my hands. Because at that time, their brain is telling them that you are helpless. And if you judge them, then they're going to block their emotions. So as we look at grief and loss, I want us to know that at first, people deny, it can't be. I was just talking with so-and-so, how come? Then they get into anger and they want to look for who to blame. Did we take him to the hospital immediately? Who delayed? And then we get to bargaining. And sometimes the sadness becomes too much that a number of people get into depression, even if it's for a short time. Much later, if you process all this thing well, then you can get at peace and accept what has happened. But these things also do not go in all the category of one after the other, that you go, you bargain, you deny, and all that. All of us are different. So even as you read them and say, oh, the stages of grief are this, please know that we don't go through them. They are guidance. We don't grow through them in that sequence. So I want us to know also that as we go through loss and grief, there are emotional ways in which we can take care of ourselves. We can look at how do we monitor, evaluate, and modify our elections. Our mind, and choose healthy coping strategies. So I want us to look at what are some of the healthy coping strategies that we can look at during this time of loss and grief. One, we need to look at how do we take care of our mind. The self-talk, very critical. What are things that you're allowing in your mind? Because our mind, if we don't take control of it, it can preach nonstop. It can bring you what if. Even when you lose a child, it can bring you. So I will just be bringing up children and then they'll just be dying like this, and then I'm alone. And so now what happens next? It's even a waste to pay fees. Other children might need fees, and you say, it's even a waste, and this, let me delay, or something like that. And I want to tell you this because this happened to me. I lost my brother some years back, and I was paying fees for him, and he had completed college. And I was living with him, and he was very useful to me. He would even take my children for clinics and all that. So when he died, and then the next term, my siblings were going to school. For the first time, I delayed paying fees. It was like you just invest and then you lose like that. So I want us to be encouraged that it's not always the same pattern, but that can happen. And it can affect your judgment and decisions. And I remember the next time I lost a relative and I was going back home in the shacks, that day I cried. I cried not that I was mourning the lady we were taking, but I cried that I was mourning my brother. Because during the burial, when I was just about to start crying, I was called to give direction. The priests were almost leaving. So I never mourned. But the anger was so real that when I stood next to his coffin, it was like, you can be kidding. I used to call him Charlie. You can be kidding that you're lying there and you're lying there really. You cannot be serious. You get that? It was so real. The anger was so real. I remember just seeing the cotton wool, and then again I was called. But I want to tell you, good people, that even with all those moments in between, my body sucked all the negative energy. My muscles kept the information and the records. So one day when we were in a training, a friend of mine held my back, and I would have spasms in my back, body spasms. It was the loss and the many other things in life. But what I know is my muscles were having spasms. So when my friend touched and said, Eunice, it's like stone. And I said, yeah, she told me, hey, that feels like stone, when she tapped my back after a hug. And we started looking at, how do I take care of my muscles? That's when I started doing the massage. I started the self-care. And it has really been useful. So as we look at some of the things, the changes that comes with loss and grief, there's lack of sleep, there's anger, there's unspoken reaction among the family, that you can just find you are home and nobody's speaking. And there's unspoken bitterness and pain to each member of the family. And so when we are aware of all this, then we can take care of ourselves to grieve differently, because it's a process that you cannot tell somebody that I'll grieve for 1 week, then I go back. There are a lot of things in your life that will trigger. You will be seeing the age mate of your husband, of your child, and say, yeah, so and so would also be. Oh, actually, the age mate is wedding. Yeah, by the way, yeah, even ours would be wedding now. When the age mates are having children, you'll be looking, yeah. There are a lot of things that will remind you. So the best thing is to look at, how do we take care of ourselves so that we reduce the intensity and we heal, so that when all these things come in, we have already taken care of ourselves. And these are personal choices. So I want to ask you, great people, please give yourself permission to sort your life. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to take good care of yourself intentionally and consistently. So you also need to be able to label your emotions. When you're angry, you just need to note that, yeah, today I woke up and I'm angry. I need to just sort myself. You may not know where the anger is coming from, but the body has spoken. I always say that, we need to be aware that when our body speaks, because it speaks every day, even today, when we woke up, the color of urine, your body was speaking. Did we check it? Yeah, our body was speaking. Yes, just simple thing like urine. The body is speaking. If you didn't take enough water, the color will be different. If you're on medication, the color will be different. So it is important that we take good care of this piece, because this body is what you use every day. The other thing that we need to take care of is, how do we get to do mindful activities? And you can do something as simple as just being mindful when you're eating or drinking water, to just be able to swallow that water and just how far it goes. You see the way I'm doing this water? And just concentrate and just look, be aware, where is that water? Where has it reached? The other thing that you can do as you are packed with this emotion is to be able to yawn regularly. We have undermined the physiology of yawning. And it's one thing that I want you to know, that it can only be done in the day before you sleep. I don't know among you anyone who has ever woken up to yawn. We can wake up to go to the washroom. You can be woken. When the bladder is full, you'll be woken. But you can never be woken up to yawn. And I know from different backgrounds that yawning was shamed. But yawning is one of the things that allow enough air entry into the system. It also releases the tension that is there in the neck. And yawning also gives your brain time to relax. You can't yawn and think at the same time. And those are things that you can look at later on. Just do that organic inquiry and be able to yawn and say, can I yawn and think at the same time? So it gives your time, your brain time to rest within the day. The other thing I want you to look at is, how do you understand and manage your emotions? What is called emotional intelligence? How do you build healthy social skills? How do you increase your self-awareness? How do you set healthy boundaries? And also look at the compassion, the self-compassion. Also look at the self-compassion. As we look at all this, you also need to look at, how do you manage your stress? Because loss and grief affect stress levels and increases the cortisol production in our system. So it is important that you look at what strategies, when you're going through loss and grief, what strategies are you having to manage stress? Remember, our lives are stressful, and stress is healthy. But if we don't manage our stress as they come, we can easily get into chronic stress that will predispose us to diseases like lack of concentration, lack of sleep. And now, as I talk of lack of sleep, there are diseases that come because we have not had enough sleep. So again, we need to take care of ourselves, that when crisis comes as we go through loss and grief, we do not allow ourselves to get to medical diseases and conditions because we have not processed our emotions well, that interfered with our sleep, and therefore the disease has come. You get what I mean? So also look at, how do you manage stress? How many hours do you sleep? Great people do digital detox? Do you do colon detox? What fruits, what juices, what food are you eating that time that you're stressed? A lot of time when we're stressed, we may get into sugary things that are tasty. You want to grab and move. You want to grab and move. But what is that doing to the system that is already dealing with so much in terms of loss and grief? So as we look into all this, I want you to look at you Vehicles use diesel or petrol, whatever it is. But man is the machine and is run by emotions. That you are run by emotion. Your body is being run by emotions. Yes, you're happy, you show that emotional help. You're sad, you bring in that. You're lukewarm, you say, Niko tu hapo sawa, I'm just there. So our bodies are run by emotions. And yet it's one thing that we hardly invest time to study, to sort, and to reset ourselves. And the sadness that comes with loss and grief is also felt by ourselves. Yes, it's communicated to our body cells. So this period that you're going through the loss and grief, I want you to know that your cells are also mourning. And the cell's lifespan is about 21 days. So if they take longer, those that are going to die in your system early, there's something that is going to interfere with them, because then they are not going to produce enough oxygen, enough globin, and all that is needed in this system. So we need to really be able to look at this machine that is impacted by emotions that are charged daily, seconds by seconds. How do I take care of the emotions so that my emotions do not destroy this machine? And some of the things that we can do is we can engage in breathing. And so I want us to just be able to do this exercise of breathing. And there's a lot that you can do, and you can check them online. I want you to pick what works for you. I know whistling, but in some cultures, women are not allowed to whistle. They always say that if you whistle, your husband is going to die. Yes, in some cultures, women are not allowed to whistle. There's this, the sighing. I don't know whether you've come across children the way in the village they would cry and they're left there, they cry until they sleep out there. But when they gain their consciousness, they say that. And that sighing is so good because it's one of the things that help us reset our central nervous system. Yes, the simple sighing help us reset our central nervous system. And when you sigh, again, you saw that what I was describing as the waro that blocks here the neck, you take care of your neck, because the air entry and the sound is very, very, it's very good. So I want us to do, yes, I've noted the time. So I want us to do only these two exercises. That will take us about 3 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you can do. Mm-hmm.
So I want us to make a sound. If you're in a place where you can make a sound, and we'll just do ooh, ooh. And then you do again ooh. Ooh. And then, yeah, I can see, you see the way that the response, the natural response of yawning automatically can come in. And then now you can vibrate your system and just be able to tap. You tap, and when you tap under the armpit is usually, you can do this much later, but under the armpit has lymphatic glands that helps in drainage of the lymph. And when you tap here, there's that vibration that comes with it. So again, you just tap, and then you tap every part. I mean, you tap your legs, you tap your neck, you tap your shoulders, and it's really, really very, very useful. So I want to thank you very much. And the last thing is, please learn to laugh. Laughter is medicine. And sometimes we are laughing because it is medicine, not because of we have something interesting about it, but just to be able to laugh. The brain is very complex organ. Whether you laugh that you're happy or not, the brain doesn't know. It will send information to the body, and that will reduce the cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So whether it's real or not, the thing is you're doing yourself better by eliciting activity that reduces the cortisol that is harmful to your system when it's overproduced. So thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you, thank you. I know that when we laugh on Zoom like this, it doesn't do the same thing, right?
Yeah. But that's the same thing.
Right.
The hormones are produced. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So let's keep laughing. Is there any burning question that somebody may have that we need? Can this presentation be shared on WhatsApp? I don't know what you mean, but well, you can reach out to us. We can share the recording with you. You reach out through the contact page that is shown. Is there any burning question? Somebody may have a question. We just want maybe one question, if at all. Then we just move on because we should finish shortly. Going once, going it's gone. It's gone. I will call Dr. Simani to pass a vote of thanks on our behalf. Dr. Maybe we will also see your laughter this time round, other than your name.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to say on behalf of all our clubs, on behalf of the Rotary Club of Milimani, we'd like to say thank you to Eunice for that wonderful and amazing conversation on a very difficult and lengthy topic, the topic of grief. Grief is something that I think we all encounter in many different ways, and it's not common for everyone. Although the process of going through grief, the stages of grief are similar, there's something about the grief we experience which is different for each and every one of us. We process grief in different ways, based on culture, based on gender, based on even where we come from, homes, whether you're from Western, you find people from Western, they process grief differently from Central Province, from Northeastern, the coast people, and so on. But I was able to take a few pearls from the conversation. One of the most important things, regardless of where you're from, give yourself permission to take care of yourself. Take enough water, food to eat, get enough sleep. When we're confronted by tragedy, tragic events like last week, there were floods, and you went to work in the morning, you didn't know that your spouse was going to drown by evening, and suddenly you're confronted with that. You're told your car is floating down Athi River. What do you do? So grief can meet us in many different ways. And therefore, we all have to sit down and accept it. But then life also moves on. You cannot stop and just grieve. Supper has to be prepared. Children have to go to school the next day, or other work has to be done the next day. Bills have to be paid. The landlord is not going to wait for you to grieve before he comes for his money. So life moves on. And in the midst of that, you still have to find time to grieve. So take care of yourself, get enough to eat, get enough to eat. If you're tragedy is very severe, remember you may suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. So even if you're going to be the one to cook, the one to take kids to school, the one to conduct the funeral, then you have to raise money, you have to do harambes and all those things. You still have to take time for yourself. Remember that. Otherwise, PTSD begins to set in. So at the end of the day, get some help. Don't try and be a hero. And we are very fortunate. For example, we in Rotary Club of Milimani, we have so many people we turn to when these things happen to us. And those are some of the reasons we value our friendships and relationships in our clubs, because we have people in the club that we can turn to either privately or in public or in other ways. So thanks, Eunice, and we appreciate your message. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. And thank you, Eunice, because I gave you a prompt call. We had scheduled some other topic, then we thought this one would be appropriate for now because of the prevailing circumstances. And you gladly accepted, despite the busy schedule. You were meant to travel somewhere, and I know you are set to travel this afternoon. And at this moment, just briefly, I'd like to know, Wangari, would you like to mention something about upcoming arrangements? Then we go to SA and close. Rotarian Wangari.